we decide today when tomorrow is and yesterday was. I can because I am. Where's the line between slam poetry and insanity? Insanity. Slam poetry.
Get ready for some wasted words.
Yow! We are here today. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, MBs, anybody else joining today. Happy whatever day it is. I want you to imagine it is a Friday. I'm coming in. Today's theme is happiness. We're coming in hot. And I apologize if I'm too breathy, but you know, we just absolutely crushed today. Even if you're listening to this in the morning, I want you to look forward to the day you're about to devour. I'm coming in with this energy to give you guys a little bit of context. I recently watched a video talking about the science of happiness a little bit. Happiness. I think the theme of today's episode is happiness, how to be happy. Not to get it too ahead of myself, but I don't want the word happiness to lose its meaning because that word has another word in it. So maybe I just say happy. But yeah, so essentially a little bit of context again. Blah, blah, blah. The video that I watched was about sort of like how a lot of people will get stuck into, their routine and their ways, and they can kind of feel like they're not doing anything. And a lot of times people will associate happiness as this complex like Rubik's Cube that you need to solve. And this person was saying they were a licensed therapist, and they were saying they've worked with rich people, they've worked with poor people, and often there was a lot of like rich people that actually were wildly unhappy, even though they were achieving these lofty goals. They were able to stack their bread, as one might say, and one would assume that person should be happier. And while financial stability is a very easy way to get to a happy life, or more of like a carefree life, those things are not necessarily the same thing. They were saying that being happy, you can't have it as a goal. You don't want to be like, hey, my goal is to be. I want to achieve this. Once I make this much money, I will be happy. Or once I bench press this much weight, I will be happy. I think it's more about acknowledging what's around you and understanding the circumstances of where you are, and understanding what are the externalities, what are the things you have control over, and really putting emotional weight in what you have control over. Essentially, the heart of this message is you shouldn't trip over the things that you can't move. As in, like, if you get to a boulder and you're like, I'm going through, when you could easily just walk around. This is an emotional boulder in front of you. And you could be a lot happier. If, you walk around. This analogy starts to lose a little bit of meaning. But I think it's a cool one. It's interesting because, I get caught in this routine where I'll wake up and be like, work today. I'm going back, driving home. But then these last couple days, I've been driving home. Sometimes I don't even listen to anything. I'll just be cruising. I'll be like, you can make your own music. I'll be talking to myself. We'll just be having a good time. And I feel like being someone that is able to see joy in everyday things also is a little infectious. Is that the right word? It makes the people around you sort of like, smiling. And I think emotions are human nature to mirror. So if you're happy, often someone next to you will likely be happy, or they'll have an easier time getting to joy. Like, similar to how if people are angry, if the person next to you is angry, you may be quicker to become angry if you hear what happened, you hear the context, rather than if you hear the context on your own and you decide what emotional response you want to get to. But anger is an emotion, and it is also a really common emotion used to hide other emotions. That's why anger is often associated with very masculine figures, or like just is considered a very masculine emotion, because it in sort of the idea of like toxic anger, you're shoving down any other emotions, where likely a lot of anger comes from a sad place. But today is the happy episode. We're on a high note. So I mean, I just think it's cool to be able to come into the day and claim that you want to have a good time is really cool. I think it's an interesting spot to be in. Obviously, it's a very privileged place to be in a lot of the time, because sometimes the externalities around you may not be exactly what constitute a happy environment. There's a lot of people that may be struggling with the stuff around them, and I think that's really difficult to tackle. So you do want to be careful a little bit, but I think it is something to like acknowledge where you are, but also see like what you could I don't want to say control, but I think the mind has a lot more control of our emotions than we give it credit. We are one of the most resilient creatures. The way we react to stuff is amazing, but sometimes we're too fast to react. So, just next time you want to just give it some grace, and you want to look in the mirror and smile. And I also brought this beautiful glass of water. I'm a bit parched, so yeah. Um, that's the thing, though. I do think a little bit you do want to be aware of what can cause issues, because there is such a thing as toxic um, positivity. It's sort of like at this point it's a bit of a buzzword. It's next to AI and just down the line from cryptocurrency, but toxic positivity is sort of this idea that people will be hyper optimistic to a point where it's actually bad. A lot of times, if you wake up and you're like, put a smile on, it'll make you feel better. Um, you may not be you. Some days you're not going to have as good of a day. I still think you can wake up and try a little bit, but I think it is also responsible and reasonable to acknowledge, sometimes you don't want to put on and I'm making this sound like choosing happiness as a mask. I think it turns into a mask when people start to creep into toxic positivity, where they're like, every time I greet someone, I want to bring the quote unquote best version of myself, which may externally seem like a very happy person, and people could say, "Oh my gosh, this person always has such a good time," but internally it can be crushing. So I think coming into the idea of happiness from a more responsible and realistic perspective is a fair place to start. Because at the end of the day, you may be driving, you may get cut off in traffic, and you may say they have a really nice car, but you still got cut off in traffic. Or, you see this happened to me one time. You're going on a walk and with your friend, and you see someone dropped $1, and your friend reaches down and grabs it quicker. In that moment, a little bit, you just want to strangle your friend, right? Which is interesting, because it's a little bit like, behaviorally, why do we have this like often what feels like a deep resentment for some of our most loved like friends? We may be in a situation where someone gets like an award or something that makes them feel better off than you, and you may be really annoyed. But I don't know. It's interesting. And so I think probably at the end of the day, taking a breath can really, wow. I did that kind of as not a bit, but just like to represent taking a breath. And it really did clear my mind. I think I went nonstop there for a second, and my mind was racing. But that was pretty cool. Where I think it is one of those things where, you know, understanding what's around you may help you in the end. Um, and yeah, I mean, not to larp on this too long, but um, yeah, I mean, toxic positivity is something I think you want to you want fear. Is that the right word? Am I using that right? I didn't know. You just want to be aware of, and I feel like at this point I probably just like yapped for a minute, but that's the point of this wasted words, y'all. That's the thing. I get so happy when I get to come up here and chat. But today I was a little tired, so I was a little bit like maybe tomorrow. But I'm glad I did it. I'm happy I did it. Um, End of the day, y'all. We wake up. We wake up. We get up. We wake up. Um, and there was a movie. I think it's called About Time, which stars the one of the guys in the Office reboot called The Paper, who is uh born into a family, and spoil alert, by the way, skip to
13 minutes and 1 second.
timestamp if you don't want to get spoiled about time. But basically, to summarize this movie, this guy is at a certain age is told by his father that the men in their family have the ability to warp time. They're allowed to go back into any moment and relive that experience. And it sort of shapes like the understanding of why his dad enjoys life so much. And he starts to the theme of the movie is like he'll make mistakes and then he'll go back on them. And then by the end of the movie, he finds out um, the secret he's told is that his dad's secret to life was to go through every day once, and then at the end of the day restart and go through the day again, and just look around and acknowledge everything that's beautiful and everything that's amazing around you. Um, Now, we don't have the ability to turn back time. Otherwise, I would have a lot less embarrassing moments. But then the main character of this movie takes it one step further past his dad and says, not only am I living in the moment, but he's not even going back in time. He's living his life as if it was the second day every day, which is a very optimistic way to look at it. And I think there are definitely flaws a little bit in that, but I mean, I think it's a beautiful sentiment. Um, but yeah, it's an interesting one. Happiness as a whole, happiness. We may cut that. We will see. I don't think I drank enough water today, y'all. Whoa. Look at that. Right down the middle. But I think that's the thing. I mean, I touched on that a little bit, but at the end of the day, you wake up. I mean, did I say that right? At the end of the day, you go to bed. At the start of the day, you wake up. The day starts again. You do want to be fair with how you acknowledge these things. You're in traffic. There's a car in front of you. That truck has a sliding door. Sliding doors aren't on cars. Who made that? I love a sliding door. Don't love it. Love is a strong word. It's on that car. We need to stop. We need to stop and think. Sometimes you just take in the information. You take in the information, you let it come in, it soaks into your mind, and you let it leave. I was going for a walk the other day, and a man in front of me was screaming. I went into my local convenience store, and I got a Gatorade Zero. Zero. Put that in reverse, I dare you. It won't be anything, I promise. And we live on. So a little bit I eat, I drink, I poop. There's a line. We walk that line. We like to put meaning into that line. But at the end of the day, it's a day. Even the idea of a day is somewhat made up by people. And yet we choose. Which is cool. It's interesting. We sleep on pillows that are comfortable. Last night I actually slept on a quite round oblong pillow, and sleep is actually a pretty favorable word for this experience, but nonetheless, I tried something new. We dipped our toes in, y'all. And the grass was green when I woke up. The sky was blue when I walked outside. I drove to work and my desk was there. Now, is that a bad thing? Not necessarily. It's a fact. We are working with facts. We see what's in front of us and we choose to associate that with a feeling. And that feeling isn't always good. Sometimes it is good. Sometimes it's amazing. Sometimes it's the most amazing thing ever, but sometimes it's tragedy. And yet, there's a little guy walking around my brain like, what do we choose today? I see something, and depending on how it's assembled, my mind might think delicious. Or, I don't know. Maybe my mind thinks time to turn right. There's an awful lot of traffic talk today for some reason, and I don't know why. Sort of the idea of free will a little bit, but not entirely. If I keep bringing something up, but I'm also just sort of talking in general, is that a little bit peeling the curtain back on obviously biases? And maybe perhaps y'all get to understand that a lot of times we may record after I drive home. Perhaps maybe a little bit of traffic dabbed in. Maybe not, though. Maybe that's just something we think about a lot. What did traffic look like before cars existed? The idea of traffic is just sort of high capacity in a place that's not built to experience that high of capacity, right? I don't know the technical definition, but if I had to guess, it would be somewhere around exactly what I just said. And that's that. I mean, if I said it how it is, that's a fact, no? Sort of describing the wall. People say, like watching paint dry. You could make an argument, and I'm saying, very generously, you could make an argument. You could argue that watching paint dry could be put next to action movies. I don't want you to think about that for too long, but I think a stubborn enough person could say the idea of media filling our brain is just our brain choosing to interpret images how they are wanted to interpret them. You could see a beautiful story on the blue prairies of a popcorn speckled ceiling as the drought, the most severe drought runs across as the sun rises and the light flickers on for the first time as the last drop of moisture leaves the surface of this make-believe planet. We choose to perceive what we perceive. Are we there? I don't know. I was in the car today and I thought of I always like to think of what songs come up. I drove home today with no music. Sometimes it's a interesting thing. I drove home with no music and it was fascinating. I experienced for the first time in a while complete mindlessness. I experienced no thoughts, which is a little scary because I was driving a car, but to a certain point, driving a car in a lot of ways is extremely associated with muscle memory. If you drove a car the same way you drove the first time you ever drove a car, you would never want to drive. But that's learning. I mean, people learn. And the experience of thinking about nothing entirely is fascinating. Because as humans, we think so much. We are constantly uh, feeding ourselves information and reacting uh, however we react. I mean, especially nowadays with the way the entertainment is built, the way we see things is extremely high octane, which is immensely expensive in this economy. And these are facts. You could write a poem. You could do that. Maybe. I'm thirsty. Mmm. Mmm. Wow. That's good stuff. Is it? Mmm. What the heck? I feel awful. Where do I go from here? I feel like we started this one a little too high energy and we're crashing. I have nothing to say except for maybe when we choose. I mean, it's a funny place to be. A little bit I want to acknowledge where we've come from, but to a certain point everything we think of in some way is meant to hide us from another reality. People talk about how raising children or sort of the idea of raising children and what do you hide from them? What do you tell them? Cuz at a certain point they will find out. It's a trope where a lot of people that go to Catholic school do crazy stuff once they get out. Um and whether that's true or not, it's sort of playing on the trope that like what you choose to hide from people, or I should say shield, what you shield from people often finds a way to come out. And I think the longer you shield someone from something, the louder that reveal is. And I think the more exasperated that person feels if they attach that feeling to you hiding it from them. There's a popular saying that strict parents make sneaky kids, sneaky children. I feel like I messed up that saying. It's interesting that children can be seen as like the most pure form of humans or the happiest form of us. And yet a lot of people despise children. Is that envy? Is that one of the big seven? Maybe. Oh gosh, this is awful. Hope y'all are doing well. We're we're on a really high note right now, as you can tell. Um, say hello to my guest. No guest. We also have no producer. We live with these facts. The the producer is out of town today, and the guest never was. But I like to introduce y'all to make us feel a little lonely. Because I think living in the moment is one thing, but experiencing the moment for how the moment is another thing. We can be sad and yet live a happy moment. If you've seen the movie Inside Out, I feel like that has more context, but I don't know how we're doing right now. We're here, that's for sure. We are in this little room. I feel blech. We decide today when tomorrow is and yesterday was. I can because I am. Where is the line between slam poetry and insanity? I feel like we're dipping our toes in. Little bit, y'all. Little bit, y'all. So, on a more mellow note, we are here today. But yeah, this one may be a shorter one. Just a little feeler. Let me know how you're feeling and be honest. Here we go. I feel amazing. What? All right, I take it all back. We're so back. We're so back. Today's today, tomorrow's tomorrow, but in a good way. We're happy. We choose to be happy because we can be happy. Because the water I drink is pure and my smile is genuine. Oh my. Yeah. This is going to be good.